Hi guys, greetings from the Osadni balcony. Hope everyone had a great spring break and is getting back into the swing of things on this cloudy Sunday evening. So I'm here to talk about chapter 9, which at first I wasn't really sure what to talk about because almost the entire chapter is just lesson plans, which is super great. So what I've done is I've scanned them on my phone and I will send those to you, all you guys, on Drive as well as this video so that when we have to return these books to the library, we still have these lesson plans to look at when we start teaching. So I decided for this video, I'm just going to talk about a couple things and point out a couple things from the chapter, and then we can continue this discussion in class tomorrow. So the first thing I want to talk about is in the first lesson plan, which is about experiencing dynamics. Part of the lesson is having the teacher map out the dynamics on a board following the student's suggestions, and the author says it's really important to listen to what the students are saying and actually follow their suggestions rather than correcting them as you go, because this allows the students to then go back and make sure that they've done it right, and if they haven't, then they can begin to recognize where they might have, gone louder when it went softer or missed a dynamic change. And that goes for all different sorts of lessons. Like, it's always just, listen to what your students are saying, because that'll also tell you how much they're learning and where they're at with the concept. So this lesson is also done in two parts. So the first part is just identifying and experiencing dynamics, and the second part is kind of like composing a piece that has dynamics in groups, so more class participation. And she puts a little blurb in between the two lesson plans about at the end of the first class mentioning what you're going to do in the next class, so the students have something to look forward to and they can kind of, think back on what they learned the first class and prepare for their second class, or at least have something to be excited about that they know they're going to do next class. So in this second class, she has students get into groups and create pieces that show dynamic changes in some sort of way, and then have each group share with the class. And so when there's group sharing happening, the author talks about it's really important to avoid critical or judgmental questions like, did you like this piece? Because that implies that you liked it because it was good, or you didn't like it because it was bad. So while it's really good to have students comment on each other's pieces and praise them and all that, just avoid, as a teacher, asking those kind of pointed questions to avoid kind of kids hurting other kids' feelings. And that also leads into the idea of making sure your music classroom is a space where any student feels like making music is something that anyone can do, which is super important. And I kind of wrote about this in my essay as well. Just like making sure your classroom is a safe space for your students, because as soon as they don't feel like their work is going to be received in a nice way, they don't want to create, they don't want to perform, they don't want to listen, they don't want to share their ideas anymore. So it's super important to create this feeling that making music is really something anyone can do, and that'll, especially with beginner composers, really encourage them to let their ideas flow. So in the next lesson, which is in lesson plan 9.2, she works with a piece, and it's about creating a melody using steps and skips and leaps. And just one thing overall, I'm going to kind of skim through this really quick, but she basically talked a lot about tying it into contextual evidence. And so she talked about the original song that she used, which was Lo Peter, which was a children's game from Ghana. But even if you could use any other song, as long as you provide that contextual background about where the song came from and why you're using it, and that really provides a sort of contextual doorway into the piece that you're going to talk about. One thing that kind of came throughout the whole lesson was making sure that instructions for whatever you're doing are clear and available and readable by the whole class, whether that's writing them on your whiteboard, displaying them on a screen, just so that when you ask students to maybe break into their own groups and do their own thing, they have a clear-cut set of directions so they know what to follow, what to do next, and they don't either get stuck because they don't know what comes next, or and they can make sure as a group that they're staying on track with what you've asked them to do. So I think this is really important to note. And the last thing I noticed throughout all of these lesson plans that the author constantly mentions is allowing students the time to share their work with the class. And I think this is super important because I definitely, like growing up, didn't have a lot of time to share what I was working on with other musicians at my level. And so I think it's super important, especially with like middle learners, to build their confidence in their musical abilities and to kind of maybe not curb stage fright, but maybe catch it at an early part in their lives, is to just give them the opportunity every lesson that you have or every chance that you have to play for each other, because that'll really get them used to performing for their peers, which is a lot of times the hardest thing to do. I hope that you guys enjoyed this chapter on lesson plans and that maybe we will someday use them in our own classrooms. Yay! Okay, bye guys.